I'll never forget the first time I saw SB129. The sight of Squidward having a midlife crisis in a futuristic Krusty Krab was pure gold. Outside of the wackier parts of the episode, I remember seeing him caught in this endless room in all white. The tiles were disappearing when he touched them, and there were strange voices in the background. When I was younger, I really didn't understand what I was looking at when it came to this part of the episode, but I do now. What I had watched was a mystery, which was a liminal space in a cartoon. Now, what exactly is a liminal space? Liminal spaces, for the most part, are depicted as empty places. There's no one around, and they feel left behind. Now, you might be like, but Murray, how do I know that I've been inside of a liminal space before? Well, imagine yourself inside of a grocery store that was about to close, right? It's dark outside, the aisles are empty, and all you hear is the sound of music coming from a distance. Sure, it probably does sound peaceful, but you then realize that things aren't as peachy as they seem. For some reason, the hairs on the back of your neck start to stand up. You start to hold yourself, maybe even walk a little bit faster. And as you're making your way down the aisle, it feels like you're being watched. Right as you turn your head. Okay, so you might have not been inside of a grocery store under those circumstances, but you might have stayed after school for sports or tutoring and seen your school completely empty. Maybe even went to a mall that once was popular, but then was abandoned. Liminal spaces aren't just limited to the physical world either. They can be places that manifest themselves into your dreams.
And even your nightmares.
There are countless examples out there, but how does liminal spaces apply to cartoons? And what's the mystery behind them? Well, before I answer that, you need to understand that some of your favorite cartoons have featured an element of liminal space that might have changed your views about the episode. Take SpongeBob from earlier. It's a show that has built its name off of being upbeat, with tons of episodes that made you laugh with its funny moments.
No, please, have mercy!
It made you sing with its endless amount of musicals. But every now and then, the show turns away from its wacky fun and gets kind of strange, even disturbing. Whether it be from the characters that put them in real danger or the places that they're in. So that brings us back to SB129, an episode that puts a character like Squidward, someone who's rather negative and oftentimes emotionally distant, inside of not so favorable situations. I mean, think about it for a sec. This whole episode was about Squidward getting away from SpongeBob. The more he tried, the more he got even closer. It got so bad to where Squidward broke the time machine, and you just see reality itself get turned inside out. And so that brings us to the point we're at now. Squidward cannot believe that he finally can get what he's wanted more than anything else. Peace and quiet from SpongeBob and Patrick. He can now play his clarinet, do whatever this was, and work on his art as much as he wants with no interruptions. Even though he thinks he can now have privacy, he then comes to a horrifying realization that shakes him to his core. That thought makes Squidward feel uneasy to the point where he starts to panic. And even though he now realizes that this isn't what he really wanted, it may be too late for him. Now, how is it that a liminal space can affect someone this much, to the point where they'd want to be with the most annoying person in their life? Well, if you were in a place that you were unfamiliar with, there was endless white with strange voices, and the idea of being forever alone was a possibility, how would you have reacted? Squidward was dealing with something that most of us as humans sometimes forget that we need. Generally, most of us are social beings. For us to survive, we need other people to bond, share community, and build relationships with. Without that, the human race would no longer exist. Someone like Squidward realized that, even though he's an antisocial squid working for minimum wage. In those few moments, he realized that he was going to lose everything that he took for granted. Now, imagine that reality. For as annoying as SpongeBob can be at times, which is a lot, it's honestly better than nobody at all. But lucky for him, he manages to escape and even gets to see SpongeBob again. Take note that it could have been way worse for Squidward. He could have easily found himself inside the back rooms. Even though the show and SpongeBob himself can be strange at times, how are they able to present the idea of liminal space this effectively? Well, it's because liminal spaces in general affect us as people on a deeper level. When you look at these images, you can't help but feel like you've been there before and experienced the good and bad moments that came with it. No matter who you are, these experiences are a part of you, and they mold you into the person you are today, and that matters. If you attach that to something like SpongeBob, that's why the show is so effective at showing liminal spaces. But is SpongeBob the only show to have elements of liminal space? Well, liminal spaces are something that almost every one of your favorite cartoons have, and you've probably seen them before. Courage the Cowardly Dog with its shots of the house in the middle of nowhere. Ed, Edd and Eddy's wide shots of the cul-de-sac. And The Amazing World of Gumball has countless places, considering that one of its episodes put Gumball inside of liminal spaces. And that's just naming 3 shows. Now, all because you see liminal spaces in cartoons doesn't mean that you always have to feel feelings of fear and anxiety or uneasiness. Not at all. Liminal spaces can make you feel like you're safe from danger. You can just relax there, and sometimes it can make you feel like you're in a utopia of sorts. A show that comes to mind when I think of liminal spaces that are calming is Tom and Jerry, one of my favorite cartoons of all time. The old school design of the living room with its shots of the couches, hallways, and old TV always gives me memories of my grandma's house, a place where I used to play with my brothers, cousins, and have sleepovers. My grandma would cook food for us on Sundays. We'd watch football and take turns playing flash games on the computer. I always sat on her leather couch and was always comforted. I can even hear the old school music of the show from these images just by looking at them. I go back to liminal spaces like these when the nostalgia bug bites me. I do that because I want to remember how easy life was back then, and I think we can all appreciate when life was simple. But back to the question, what's the true mystery behind liminal spaces in cartoons? The mystery is that when you think about an episode from your favorite cartoon, there's an element of liminal space that hits you on an emotional level that made that episode unforgettable. The challenges that liminal spaces brung to these characters and how they reacted to them is what brought the best out of them. The next time you look back on your favorite cartoon, look at how its inclusion of liminal spaces might have impacted the episode more than you realize.